Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the invite to come and speak. I'm afraid a couple of you have definitely heard most of this content a couple of weeks ago. But anyway, I'm here to talk about the launch of ITVX. I lead a team specifically around video delivery, so pretty much everything from transcoding live and VOD content all the way through to consumption in the video players. Now, for those of you that have tried to look me up on LinkedIn, you'll find me looking like that in 2008. The one and only professional profile photo I've had taken. I spent about 5 or 6 years in defense and medical and a couple of years at Sky, and it made me look like this. Don't look at my GitHub, there's not a lot of interesting material on there. And yeah, five or 6 years in the media industry and 2 kids, and I get viper stripes on the beard. So anyway, enough about me. ITVX. So for those that don't know, ITV is the largest ad-funded PSB in the UK. We have 7 DTT channels which are available on OTT. Historically, those have been available through a product known as ITV Hub that we've evolved now into ITVX, which is the future go-to-market strategy for our digital offering. It's free to air, it's ad-funded. We do have a subscription model to that as well, which unlocks some additional content and enables functionality like download. So fairly standard for the market. And I guess since the pandemic, we've been evolving the service from what was really just a catch-up service with a few hundred hours of content to where we were circa 2001, early 2002, which was probably thousands of hours of content, maybe 2,000 or 3,000, and now we're into the tens of thousands of hours of content. Now, to give you a bit of a feel, because I imagine not everyone here knows ITVX, I've got a short video just to give you a feel for what the service is about.
What do you see? They need to report the murder.
Whose murder?
What else?
What do you want?
Good detective.
Final lads.
Go on.
Introducing Britain's freshest new streaming service, ITVX, with fresh new series dropping every single week.
Would anybody like to speak up?
A fresh landscape, a fresh look, a fresh feel. Unique and unexpected.
I'm on minimum wage, and I'm looking for change. No, I'm not gonna fade.
Getting away with it.
Letting me play. You ain't bringing me down now. I'm the talk of the big town. I'm wearing my crown. I'm making it sound loud. You don't even care now. I ain't saying a prayer now. I'm walking away. I'm not gonna stay. I'm making it there now. I'm taking it solo. I'm a kid on the ground.
Get out!
I'm breaking the rules. I'm taking it all. I'm running my own show.
Sparking stories, connecting the nation, reflecting the moments that matter.
If only life was that simple.
Focused on what's important to viewers, so no matter who you are or what you love, there's something just for you.
Finish it.
Now I'm taking it solo. I'm a kid on the get-go. I'm breaking the rules, I'm taking it all, I'm running my own show.
Stream for free or upgrade for even more. The fresh new streaming service from ITV. ITVX, launching 2022.
Glad you came.
Very.
So hopefully that gives you a bit of a feel. You can see there's some big ticket items from the US movie studios in there, as well as content that we make, such as Love Island. Now, I think probably everyone in here knows streaming is particularly difficult. For me, it's probably the most interesting challenge of the 21st century, just by the sheer amount of engineering that's involved in delivering it. And I think if we just start to think about it, there's some really interesting image processing problems involved just in the codecs and transforming the video into something that's deliverable. We've got massive compute problems. to solve, not just in terms of computing for dealing with millions of subscribers. We've got all the storage and delivery challenges with the CDN providers, and this is only a problem that's going to get worse as the industry shifts from delivery from broadcast mediums over to IP-based mediums. This one we've definitely talked a lot about today. Content protection is a massive challenge for ourselves and the industry, and it's fundamentally broken. We were talking earlier today about Widevine being broken, and interesting to hear about Fairplay falling into the same category. And the big concern for me in this area is we do all this work, and a lot of the time it's compromising the viewer experience by attempting to offer the studios and others the security things that they think they need, but actually you go and plug an HDMI stripper in there, an HDCP stripper in there, and you've basically circumvented all the protections we put in place for IP. We have to deal with uncontrolled networks in the form of home Wi-Fi systems, and of course, when there's a problem with someone's streaming, quite often is going to be their home network, but somehow that becomes our problem, and it gives us a scale problem in terms of call centers trying to remotely diagnose these sorts of things. This might not apply to everyone, but there is definitely a push for pixel perfect user interfaces that just look the biz, and the amount of front-end engineering that goes into making these things look fantastic, while tackling the challenges of multiple devices with different versions of browsers, and the sheer diversification of devices, versions of browser, versions of operating system that exist within the TV ecosystem is going to have to get addressed over the coming years, because it is becoming arguably impossible for even a large organization like we are to try and tackle this. And to give you some context, we've probably got now about 200 engineers working on everything around video. So it's not a massive team either, but we put a lot of resource and staff into dealing with this device diversification. Now, ITV's approach is not to build everything ourselves. We've preferred to partner with some key providers, and this doesn't include everybody. And we do have CloudFront in that mix. I just didn't get an icon for them. Now, we've chosen to try and choose the best-in-class provider for our streaming pipeline. So rather than lock ourselves into one particular vendor end-to-end, we try to choose the best packager for us to give us that flexibility, try to use the best analytics, etc. And we're trying to be really scientific about making those decisions. Now, the story I'm here to tell today, for me, starts back in 2001 in the summer, where we were broadcasting the 2020 Euros. Does anyone remember this particular match in the UK? I'm guessing these do from a couple of weeks ago. So this particular match, we decided to serve the same 6-second chunk for an hour. Not exactly ideal, and of course, when this kind of live stuff goes wrong on that kind of scale, you end up with these kind of headlines, and even big players like, say, Twitter Spaces a couple of weeks ago have perfectly demonstrated that this stuff is still massively difficult and really a challenge to address. Now, we use a service provider called Adetto to look after package encryption and then egress out to the CDNs. And what we found during this particular incident was that the way the packager had been deployed was to a shared file system called Ceph. Now, if anyone knows, the unified streaming packager has a file-based database in. file-based databases on a distributed file system, it's not going to go well. And what we found is that the database had locked itself up and was no longer able to do the right lookups for the packager to work. So it just carried on serving the same video chunk. We thought this sort of thing was never going to be an issue because we run an A stack and a B stack. And so we just failed over to the B stack. Guess what happened? Exactly the same thing. There was a new hope, though. I'm a Lego fan. I love Star Wars. Had to get it in there somewhere. So we worked with Adetto. So this is both a good story, both a slightly negative story, but equally a very positive story about working closely with partners as if they were part and parcel of our organization, to redesign the topology of our live streaming service. And we worked together to shift what was largely a monolith, one deployment of the packager, it's not strictly true, to start to split that out into a more modern way of working. Step one, not use a shared file system like Ceph and follow the unified streaming packages manual properly. But this time we've also separated out the instances by channel and by device family. So we actually run 3 versions of each channel so that if we lose, say, the TV devices, we can carry on serving on mobile, which is one of the ways we've started to introduce much more resiliency and become less dependent on individual failures in the packaging chain. Now, ensuring that the empire doesn't strike back, we introduced the super simple streaming. Anyone care to guess the last stack? Which we've recently named S4. It's one better than S3. And because we like to do things more than once, we actually did it twice. I'll explain why we did it twice in a minute. So it's dependent entirely on serverless packaging, so really trying to lower the complexity bar here. There's no DRM, so obviously we have that protected behind the CDN so that it only gets enabled when we need it to be. We've stripped out all the linear ad insertion that could potentially cause a problem, and we're dependent on one CDN. So the reason there's 2 is one set up in the AWS ecosystem fronted by CloudFront, and then another with Akamai using their MSL for technology. Now, while we were tackling these sorts of problems in video, our front-end colleagues were busy introducing an entirely new design system, which was actually the first time for us to properly go through and methodically think about what the user interface should be like for a modern OTT application. We've put an awful lot of effort in trying to get accessibility everywhere, so not just within the video in the form of audio descriptions, subtitles, and in our case, British Sign Language. Also thinking about making sure that all the right hidden tags and metadata in the user interface are there. We'll talk a little bit more about BSL in a moment. Our work with Conviva had given us an indication of what our stream performance index was. And in the 12 months that we've had access to that data and the general iteration of towards ITVX's launch, we were able to boost that rating by 13 points. And we also added two new rungs on our ABR ladder, one for 720 and one for 1080, taking us up to 8 meg streams, which, having seen some of the others earlier topping out at 4.5, definitely suggests we're overdoing it, but that's going to be a problem for another day to solve. But this is the first time that we had introduced HD pictures, having been a service that was serving 576 up until September last year. So it gives you a bit of an idea of the challenges that we were facing into at launch. Now, ITV is well known for serving linear content funded by ads, and has been doing so for the last, 70 odd years. We've now got a cool, hip Gen Z name for them. They're called fast channels, apparently. And we've added 20 of them. I haven't put all 20 up here. Mostly these are thematic, played out via our partner Amagi. That's probably should work out what the correct pronunciation is. But one of those is a national first for us. We introduced ITV Signed, which is a channel dedicated to content that's got the sign language narrator, signer, always up on screen, and we think that's a first for the UK and possibly elsewhere to get a channel dedicated like that. Now, they say that 3 things in life are particularly challenging. 1, moving house. 2, starting a new job or otherwise sustaining one. And the 3rd one, at least for me, taking a test. This is now a memory test to see how far through this I can get. And how does that translate to ITV? So we were in the midst of moving from ITV Hub over to ITVX, so moving home. This is in, when were we? November last year. We were actually in the middle of broadcasting one of the biggest shows of the year for us, which was I'm a Celebrity, and if I recall, that was the return to the Australian jungle, which was the first time in post-pandemic era, and we had this thing coming up, and it was going to be the biggest test of our entirely new streaming stack, and a whole bunch of other tests for us. And what we didn't really need was a small gotcha. So we got a phone call, it probably wasn't a phone call, it was probably an email, about six or 8 weeks out from the big World Cup game that we were particularly worried about, which was it turned out to be England versus France. And we got told by Akamai, sorry, we're only going to be able to allow you to deliver 10T. Got a similar thing from AWS, you're only going to get 6T. So we've just introduced our 8 meg streams. We know we're going to get massive concurrency. Anyone care to guess what that calculation was? Yeah, 16T was roughly where our worst case guess was going to be. So if we had hit that, we would have suddenly not be able to serve some customers. Fortunately, we met these kind of people who, with probably about 4 weeks ago by this point, offered us an extra 5T. We actually only ended up being able to use 2T due to limitations within our stream steering. Now, fortunately, actually, when we went through the match, no streaming at scale chart would be complete without one of these. This was actually the first match during the day, and then this was the England-France match. And at peak, we ended up shifting 12.5 T. So we didn't quite hit the concurrency that we thought we were, but still, we're pretty proud of the numbers that we ended up shifting. I should say we didn't have a failure. We didn't need to pull the disaster recovery stack that we talked about. Indeed, we were sitting on a call during one of the early matches with Jim, and we had spotted that we had left a staging configuration in part of that brand new Farsi setup, which we had set up in, I think it was about 2 weeks, which included getting it through legal and all those sorts of challenges. We're sitting on the call, getting a phone call from Yospace saying, hey, you seem to be pointing at our staging stack, can you fix it? And because we had the right people on the call, we were able to deploy that and approve it within a minute, and it rolled out instantly and addressed what could have been quite a nasty problem. We were able to address it. So that's really a cry. When you're doing these sorts of things, get the right people on a call with eyes on so that you can make those kind of decisions really quickly. Where are we going next? There's a few areas I'm going to try and talk about. One of those is general improvements to our VOD architecture. We hear regularly that our ad transitions around VOD are not as clean as they could be. We are forever improving video cores, as I think probably everyone in the industry is striving for. We've got to get more efficient at playing out those fast channels. The model that we've got at the moment is very broadcast oriented, and edge compute is going to play a big part in probably our content protection, but also our delivery and offering us greater resiliency. So if we can push some of those things out, that will definitely help us. So yeah, like I say, today we currently deliver our VOD ad stitching using progressive download assets. So you kind of get to the SCSI marker in the video player, we start downloading another asset, store it in memory, do a context switch to play it. And as part of that, we do a partial resolution selection, so we try to guess what the right resolution is that we should download. And what we're going to be doing later this year, early next year, is shifting that to a package-based model. Arguably, we should have been doing this all along, but we're still a relatively small team in video of about 40 people. And we're going to make that stitched in via manifest manipulation. Haven't yet worked out whether we're going to do it client-side, server-side. Hey, we might even write the code in a way that could run both ways and we can A/B test it. With our cores, most of our work is actually working with the device manufacturers to correct either inconsistencies in what we've implemented or inconsistencies in their implementation, just generally leading to compatibility issues. Our segment sizes are 6 seconds, so not massive, but equally not tiny. We want to, again, A/B test whether moving to smaller segment sizes is going to help us or introduce potentially buffering issues. Lower latency is definitely a thing that we as a company are talking about. Debatable, in my opinion, whether it's going to deliver the value that the investment will take to get that lower. We're probably about 35 seconds. The idea of delaying DTT has definitely been discussed and will continue to be, I think. And all of our streams are still 264. It will make a lot of sense where devices are compatible to shift to 265. But there is a cost question there. Do we run 264 and 265, or do we manage to serve the customer just as well and we can save a buck by staying on 264 until there's greater support in the devices for 265, or one of the many other codecs that are now open to us? So I say today we play out those fast channels much like broadcast. So we take the raw MES files, send them up to Amaji, who run them through a transcode step. They then stitch them together. They then pass them over to a Detto for package and protect, and then we play them out like we do all the other channels. As we've been hearing about VOD to Live, there's definitely better ways that we can do that in-house. That's going to be on the cards for some of those channels, particularly the ones that are much more thematic and predictable. Maybe the ones that still need editorial curation will make sense to keep elsewhere. And we really want to be able to leverage not re-egressing the same assets. And lastly, our edge compute delivery, so the deployment of things like our stream authorization services and managing the load that that particular service generates, getting that out into computer edge rather than purely in the AWS Lambdas that we run them in at the moment would be a nice thing to do. Really, this one is going to be interesting. We're finding that the compute on the devices is not really getting any better, especially as most of them are browsers, so it's all single-threaded. Whether we can use edge compute to do some offload of some of the things we do will be interesting to see. Commercial cost benefits. I can't remember why I put this one up here. Oh, I'm out of time anyway, so I'll skip over it. And the last one, trying to reduce the round trip time of transactions. So where we might want to be enabling channel hopping, requiring a license change and stuff, pushing that out to the edge maybe helps reduce the round trip time a little. And I thought I was only going to run for 15 minutes and be super early. How about that? Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Do feel free to find me later if you have got any questions. Yeah, thank you.